Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all well. Today we're doing a nervous guide for a show I've never seen before in my life. Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. Let's get into it. Let's talk all things you need to know before you go into the show for this. So if you are new here, firstly hello and welcome. Secondly, for most shows that I see, I like to do two separate videos. The first one being this one. This is the Nervous Guide. The Nervous Guide is a guide to everything you may want to know before you go into the show. If you are going alone, or if this is one of your first experiences of theatre, or if you are just like me, slightly anxious about going to see shows because you don't know what's going to happen in them, this is where this video comes in. It's everything you need to know before you go. So that's things like content warnings, sensory warnings, view from seat, information about the theatre if it's something that I've not been to a lot, or if it's one of my first experiences in the theatre too. Sometimes we talk merch. Generally, like I said, everything you need to know before you go. The second video, which will be the next video, is the review. The review is always put in inverted commas. Why? Because at the end of the day, I'm no way professional. Why am I doing hand signals? I'm no way professional. I'm just someone who likes going to see shows and talking about them, and sometimes I go and see shows alone. When you go to a theatre show alone, you've got no one to talk to afterwards about what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy, the characters and the people and the cast and everything about the show. So I do a bit of talky to a camera, and that is why we call them reviews. But like I said, we're here today to do the Nervous Guide for The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, the current UK tour. So where should we start? Let's start with a view from a seat. Always fun. For this show I chose to sit in D, in the stalls, so I was close to the action. When I booked, which I have to say wasn't a long time ago, I booked about 3-4 days before I went to see the show, because that's the kind of gal I am. There wasn't a large amount of tickets available, but there was the two that I took, which were D27 and D28. There was a few towards the back of the stalls. There was a few in the dress circle, and there was a few more on the top circle, which is the grand circle. Now, you may know that I like this show, and therefore I wanted to be able to see everything, so I put myself in D. As always, my view will be sitting in a picture right here, and yeah, I did it. I don't regret it. I'd do it again. That's all I need to say about this show. I feel like for this show, however, there isn't a bad place to sit. If you are in the stalls, you will be pretty much at head height and will be able to see absolutely everything. Most things happen in the central part of the stage, so if you are to the sides, I feel like you won't miss a lot. If you are higher than the stalls, then you also get the joy of seeing what is happening on the stage. And that, my friends, is a certain amount of lighting effects, and just generally other things that happen around that you might miss if you're in the stalls. Unless you've been to see it a few times and then you kind of know what's happening. Moving on from seat, let's quickly mention the running time of this show. Now, depending on who you talk to, you get different answers. So according to the Grand's website, they've put the running time, they've put the running time of 2 hours 30 minutes including a 20-minute interval. If you enter the theatre space, I've always talked about these at the Grand, this says 2 hours 10 minutes including a 20-minute interval. I don't time this show because I just love it wholeheartedly and want as much of it that I can. So I can't fully tell you what time it finished. All I know is that it started at 2 and I was taking a picture of the stage once the show had finished at 4:19. I could do the maths. In fact, that's quite easy maths. That's like 2 hours 20. Look at me go. So yeah, ranging between 2 hours 10, 2 hours 20, 2 hours 30-ish. Moving on to the content and sensory warnings. Now they have on the Grand website got an age guidance of 6+. As it is half term, when I saw the show there were quite a few children in the audience, it being half term and also the Wednesday matinee. So there was a good amount of children in my audience. Like, feel free, as long as you know how to behave. There is some dark moments in this show. There is essentially 2 deaths depicted, and there is an element of darkness and good versus evil around the show. There is a good person and a bad person and such, but the deaths that I mentioned, one is a knife going into a body. Yeah, I can't get around that one. A knife going into somebody. But moving on, the other death in such is a lot cleverer in that the person who dies kind of gets pounced on by a lion and thus disappears. Magic. So less gruesome second death, but the thing is, I don't think that the first death, these two both happen in Act 2, I don't find the first death gruesome, but it is a death that is depicted on stage with a knife going into somebody. So just wanted to put it out there. Upon entering the auditorium, like I said, at the Grand they often have the warnings, if you will. So for this one it says, "The Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe contains smoke, haze and flashing lights." Can concur on all of these things. There was a good amount of haze in this show. I don't know if it's always been this way and I just haven't paid attention in the past, or if there was more haze than normal, but there is a good amount. It's not the kind of haze that descends out into the auditorium. It's very much stage contained haze, or SCH. Yeah, let's just leave it at that for the haze level. The other thing to mention is there is a few blackouts. Most of these come when going into and out of the wardrobe. So there is 2 There is when Lucy goes through, Lucy comes out, Edmund goes through, Edmund comes out, and when the group goes through in Act 1, and Act 1 also ends in a blackout once the witch is at her peak, if you will. There is also then a couple of blackout moments in Act 2, mainly to be able to move people and characters off the stage when needs be. The main one being after the first death, which I feel like it's not spoiling it. When Aslan dies, which is the first death, there is a blackout after that happens. All of these blackouts are not like sudden darkness, nothing kind of moments. There are usually things happening on the stage, like doors spinning or people running, and there is music through these times, so it's not like intense darkness at scary times, but they do completely make everything a little bit darker, including turning off the lights above the emergency doors, which I've never seen before, but maybe it's because I don't tend to sit as close to the front as I did for this show. I am fearing with this one, when it comes to the sensory and content, well, more sensory, that I'm going to forget something, because I have seen this show a few times, so I knew what to expect. I knew when things were going to happen. I knew when the loud noises and lights and such were going to happen, but I feel like the main ones, if I didn't know what I was getting into before I saw the show, if I was doing this as the first time seeing it, I feel like the dark moments would be the bits that I worried about the most, because when things go dark, you don't know what's going to happen. Every time it goes dark, it does come back quite light quite quickly after the action has happened and everything has gone, to kind of symbolise that time is, or location has shifted. The next part of the story gets told pretty much straight away and the lights all come back on. So yeah, that is basically everything I feel like you need to know about this show. Normally at this point I talk about merch. Now, having seen this show a few times before, there were elements of merch that were the same as they have been previously. They still have the same water bottle that they used to sell, of which I already have. There were a few new bits. Quite a lot of it had the lion head on it. There was a new pin, but at the end of the day I have the old pin, and I didn't want two different pins, so that stayed in the merch area. They also have a single pin and a trio of pins. Okay. We all know my thoughts and feelings on trio of pins. There is a hat, there is a pullover, there is actually two hats. There's a woolly hat and a sun hat. There is a jacket, as I just said. There is a good amount of merch you can buy for this show. There is even a cuddly Aslan, a cuddly toy. But I have enough cuddly toys to last a lifetime. So yeah, the only thing I bought was the program. The program is the in-house one, so it was £5. It has grand at the bottom. There is also a souvenir program, which I believe was retailing for £8, either 8 or 10, but I thought that what I have is enough, and it is almost the end of the month, so I'm creeping along to payday. So yeah, I literally picked up the program, and I know I was very proud of myself, because I was stood in that queue at the merch for a while as large family groups were purchasing all of their things, and I was like, do I need a hat? Do I not need a hat? And I stayed away. But there we are. that is everything you need to know about The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe before you go. I hope this helps. At the end of the day, if it can help one person, I would be so happy. But yes, I'm going to finish this video here and say thank you very much for watching. The next video, as I said, will be the review video, so hope you come back for that. Other than that, I'm going to silence myself and say thank you very much for watching, and finally we say what we always say, which is so long, farewell, and Wiedersehen, adieu. Bye.